I was a camper for several years as a kid. I loved camp. Making new friends, playing outdoor games and learning new activities, and just spending all day at my all-time favorite place, outside. These are my fellow campmates back in 1969. The Devils were our pack name, and look at us. We were a tough group of boys who came from various locations around New York, yet we all had one thing in common. And it wasn't knowing how to properly dress for day camp. That's me, the well-groomed lad with the buttoned-up collared shirt and matching colored pants. And although I might appear green to the idea of camping, by summer's end, I was already anxious to return the following year, which I did. 5 years total, and my memories of camp remain vivid and joyous more than 5 decades later. This just might be the reason I felt it necessary to tell this story. A story about another camp, a camp I never attended, whose campers and counselors I never even knew. In fact, this camp didn't even exist anymore. Its doors closed at the end of the summer of 1989. Many years would pass, leaving the camp and its buildings and cabins to fall deep into disrepair. Then one day, in late March of 2023, I was asked by a wonderful organization if I would take before and after photos of the camp before being cleared and brought back to its natural state as part of a Massachusetts rewilding project. So you see, folks, my connection to this camp couldn't be more separated. However, there was something about this location that touched me the moment I took the first photograph, and it blossomed into something very special. And that's the story I'd like to share with you today. The story of the Northeast Music Camp, told by those who attended it. Their memories, their story. The location of the music camp, just over the county line that divided Ware and Hardwick, Massachusetts, really had a history that preceded the music camp. However, because there was no relevance to the music camp in that prehistory, we're not going to be discussing that in this film. What I do want to mention is when the buildings and the cabins were constructed. This is actually a very interesting side story. The structures on the property were originally built for Camp Sherry back in 1924. Although it was claimed to have been in operation since 1919, records are clear that it started in 1924 and lasted until 1950. In between that time, it was split up into a boys and girls camp where it turned into Camp Sherwood and Camp Sherrylawn. Then, 5 years after being closed in 1950, the buildings were renovated for a new owner and camp director, Robert Steck, who formed what was called an interracial community-oriented children's camp named Camp Calumet. He formed the camp after leaving his employment from a previous camp, Camp Unity, due to differences over their race policy. Founded in 1927 and described as the first proletarian summer colony, Camp Unity was a communist-affiliated summer resort for adults. It was one of the first multiracial camps of its kind in the United States, located in the Berkshire Mountains in Wingdale, New York. Steck had worked as an activities director for Camp Unity on and off since the summer of 1935. In between 1935 and 1955, Robert Steck led a very interesting life. He volunteered to fight in the Spanish Civil War. He was captured by Mussolini's fascist army and almost executed on the spot. He was saved for possible prisoner exchange and spent the next 17 months as a prisoner of war. Steck was released at war's end, returned to America, and back to Camp Unity until he joined the U.S. Army to fight in World War II. was a college graduate of Iowa State, a professional actor and writer for an American theater magazine in New York City. He was a dedicated community service volunteer as well as political activist against racism, atrocities against Jewish communities, and finding prisoners of war. Then, back to Camp Unity until 1955, when he and his dear friend and Camp Unity associate, Sophie Saroff, decided to open Camp Calumet on their own. On a small, pristine lake surrounded by beautiful pine wilderness, Camp Calumet opened from 1956 to 1967, at which point Robert Steck chose a full-time educating opportunity teaching 5th grade math at PS 40 in South Bronx until his retirement in 1978. A beautiful camp, now closed and silent, remained dormant for almost 3 years, just waiting for the right folks to find the location and recognize its amazing potential. Then finally, in 1971, the right folks showed up. And the rest, shall I say, is Northeast Music Camp history. And who better to discuss that with than the very alumni, counselors, and directors that were there during the camp's heyday, from 1971 to 1989. Unfortunately, the original camp creators, Arthur and Ellen Booth, as well as Jim Sandal, are no longer with us. However, we are very fortunate to have some very special folks here who are going to help tell this magnificent story.
My name is Nancy Sandahl. We met Art and Ellen Booth at New England Music Camp in Maine, and after we left that camp, Jim and Art Booth were the music department at Fitch High School, Groton, Connecticut, where we lived. And so the two of them kind of looked around to see if there were any camps for sale, and finally came around, found this place here in Ware, Massachusetts, and Art and Ellen and Jim and me ended up being a team, and we helped Art and Ellen get their dream going.
I'm Nancy Booth, Parody. I am the daughter of Ellen and Art Booth, who started Northeast Music Camp. Well, my father started New England Music Camp in 1937, and they met there and grew in that camp and loved camping very, very much. When they made a decision to leave New England in 1969, my mom told me my dad just wasn't happy unless he was camping. And so with the Sandals, they were able to find this wonderful property here, and it became a second home to them.
We opened the camp the first summer in 1972, and Jim and I were here as assistant directors and head counselors until 19 1979 due to both our dads passing away within 6 months of each other.
My first memories of the camp were coming, and it was in pretty bad disrepair. It had been a camp previously, but the camp hadn't been used for many years. A lot of painting, because it was really in bad shape.
There were sections of roof that were really just torn apart and all had to be re-roofed. So between the painting, even my parents came down and helped, and Dad climbed up on the inn cupola, and painted the cupola of the inn so it would look nice, and all the trim on the inn. Mom and I and a whole bunch of us did the floor of Hardwick Hall, the whole porch, all the way around the outside, which took quite a while if I remember right. The old bureaus in the inn, sometimes you open a drawer and there's a mouse nest. Oh, and sometimes they were live.
Not just the inn, in the cabins.
In the cabins too, absolutely. We had to get rid of all of those. I think one of the scariest things was we had ordered new mattresses for the whole camp. Threw out, of course, all the old mattresses, bought new ones. And they did not come until midnight, the night before camp opened. I think Art and Ellen were ready to have a heart attack right then and there. So a whole bunch of us and any of the staff members that were around just grabbed some of the mattresses and took off down the camp row, put them all on so that they'd be perfect for Mom and Dad first thing, not the kids, Mom and Dad. Moms, They go around touching all the mattresses, make sure everything is just perfect for little Johnny to come to camp.
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Sue Steepy. My dad, James Steepy, was head of the music department and conductor of bands at Susquehanna University in Pennsylvania. For about 9 or 10 years, starting when I was 6 months old, we spent our summers at New England Music Camp in Maine. At some point, my family decided to join Art and Ellen Booth and Jim and Nancy Sandahl as they left New England Music Camp to start a new music camp in Massachusetts called Northeast Music Camp. And that was first season in 1972. For those first few summers, I was a camper along with my 2 older brothers. Later on, I was a camp counselor for about 4 summers. My dad was the band conductor and trombone teacher, and my mom worked in the office.
Hi, my name's Ruth Mcke, and I was a camper at NMC from the summer of 1972 when the camp opened through the summer of 1977. And I returned in the summers of 1982 and 83 as a faculty member, directing the treble choir and teaching voice lessons. NMC was a family affair for the McKees. My father, John Mcke, knew Art Booth from New England Music Camp, where my dad was a camper in the 40s and Art was on the faculty. At NMC, Dad taught trumpet and coached brass ensembles, lent a hand with the band, and maintained the music library. My mom taught bassoon and coached woodwind ensembles, and they both taught theory as well. My younger sister Judy and I were among the many fackelbrats, the children of staff and faculty members. Fackelbrats and other scholarship students all had to work at the camp. Most of us helped out at the dining hall. And for the most part, that meant going up to the dining hall a half an hour before lunch and dinner to set the tables and then serve the family-style meals. We went up earlier than the others at lunch and dinner time to help out with prep for the meals and stayed longer afterwards doing extra cleanup and sometimes doing prep for the next meal. It's a good thing that OSHA didn't get a look at what 14 and 15 and 16-year-olds were doing in that kitchen. We would dish up food on the line, standing right in front of ragingly hot stoves. When my mom wanted to find me, she knew she could always locate me in the kitchen for about an hour before and after each meal. One night, she brought me a giant jar of blueberries that she'd picked on a bike ride around Quabbin Reservoir. I forgot to take them back to my cabin with me after finishing my chores, and Fred, the cook, found them. The whole camp had blueberry pancakes the next morning. thanks to Mom's efforts and my forgetfulness.
Hi, I'm Colleen Riley. What we have right here is the inn where people would drive up and they would go in there and register their kids, and our music staff lived upstairs in the inn. My great aunt was the registrar, so she was a person who would sit down and make all the kids' schedules. When they go in there, they'd have their music lessons upstairs, or some of them would be downstairs. I can hear in my mind, just the music playing when you'd pull up. That's all you just hear is, you would hear cellos, and then you'd hear some timpani coming from in there. It was just amazing, and it was always bustling.
There was probably 20, 25 music staff people.
Right.
There were probably 20, and those were people that were teaching throughout the country. Then we had probably 20 or so counselors who were college-age students who came for the love of music, but also stayed in the cabin with the various age levels of campers. We had a maintenance staff of 4 or 5. We had a kitchen staff of 4 or 5. And we had a full-time nurse, and then often a secondary nurse or someone that came in as a substitute or maybe on weekends. There was an office staff of 4 or 5 people. So there was quite a group of people. I would say 150 kids and close to 100 adults.
Hi, I'm Marty Smith. I was Finkelstein at the time when I was here. As a camper for 3 or 4 summers, and as a counselor for 2 or 3 as well. And this camp had a huge impact on my life and the people I met here, so I have very strong feelings for the place.
My name is Dee Fitch. I was here 1973, 74, and 75. This place was also a very, very special and very formative for me. When I was here at camp, I took percussion and also piano lessons. Never been to a music camp before. And my dad would say, you know, because I played the drums, he would call me Sticks. And my mother said, no, we're not going to call her that here. We're going to just call her Dee Dee. Don't put that pressure on her.
I was a cellist, but this camp gave me the opportunity to start playing oboe, and I ended up being a music teacher for 38 years. I think this was Thompson.
Yeah. Because it had the bigger fork.
Yeah, I spent more time in this cabin than any place else on camp. Yes. Oh my gosh. I remember the closets. And yeah, why did they all have fireplaces? Oh my goodness. And I remember, I'd forgotten about that there were little closets, but you know, people all had trunks in those days. Or they'd be under the beds, and inspection days, like everything had to be cleaned up. And we used this room. We would often have like our camp, you know, our cabin meetings, and we would all sit in a circle on the floor, conducting our cabin meeting. I don't remember what the topic was. Maybe it was an upcoming competition, or keeping our cabin clean, or you know, something like that. But yeah.
It was when I got to music camp that I found my people. And I know there were other girls in Gershwin who felt the same way, but it was like, why can't school be like this?
Yes.
Why can't, because people here understand what's important. And I didn't feel like a nerd.
Pretty amazing to have spent 6 or so summers, or parts of 6 summers of my life here, and you know, meeting the people I did, being a music teacher for my whole life, my whole career, because of this, and just having met so many wonderful people, and just the family feel, and you know, how kids were, all different kids were all involved at different levels, at different ages, and there was quite a lot of, you know, helping each other, and you know, being a team player, I think, was something that you don't see a lot in a lot of activities these days.
Hi, my name is Ted Griswold, and I'm here to share some memories and recollections from my summers at Northeast Music Camp. I have many fond memories of camp, but not many specific stories to tell. One story I do remember, and not a fond one, is that the trumpet teacher one summer, perhaps my first summer there, maybe my second, had recommended that I learn a different instrument because my embouchure was not working well for trumpet. I was crushed. This probably, though, is what made me determined to prove him wrong and become a decent player. I took private lessons after that summer, and when I returned the following summer, I had the same teacher. I had apparently made good progress since the previous summer, and he recanted what he had said. As it later turned out, I went on to secure bachelor's and master's degrees in trumpet performance and taught instrumental music in public schools for 31 years before retiring in 2018. As I reflect on my time at NMC, I think that is where I discovered my love for music and for nature, and ultimately, the one who was the author of both.
Hi, I'm Jackie Damsky, and I was a camper at Northeast Music Camp from 1973 to 1977. I went in 1973, I just went for 2 weeks. And when I walked into my cabin, everyone was so friendly to me that I didn't believe it. I kind of didn't trust it because I was from New York, not the city, but upstate a little bit, Peekskill. And people just weren't that friendly. So I really just didn't know what to make of it. But as the days passed, I saw that they were just some of the nicest people, the counselors, the campers, the staff. And by the end of the 2 weeks, I think I felt the most accepted that I'd ever felt in my whole life. I fit into this place in a way that I never fit in. But when my parents came to pick me up at the end of the 2 weeks and they started to drive away, I started crying uncontrollably because of the loss of the friendships and the community and the music and how rich this made my life. My parents didn't know what to do with me. I think I cried half the way to New York, at least, maybe more. But they did make the excellent decision to send me back year after year, so I don't think I left that bereft after that because I knew I was going back. So the last story that I wanted to tell you about is a little prank that we pulled on our very beloved conductor of a few years. His name is Jonathan Mcke, and he was very young, but he had a little goatee. I think that made him look a little older, and we got a big kick out of his goatee. And a couple of the campers had the idea of making a special day called Mr. Mcke Goatee Day. And what we did was cut out little pieces of triangular paper in the shape of a goatee, enough for the entire orchestra. And we all arranged to get to rehearsal early and stick our little goatees on our faces with Scotch tape before Mr. Mcke got there. And so when he got there, we just acted like everything was normal, but we all were wearing these little goatees. So I just remember looking out at this sea of goatees and the look of surprise on his face. And so it was very funny, and it stuck with me, Mr. Mcke Goatee Day. And Jonathan Mcke is still conducting. He's had a very illustrious conducting career, and he's currently in Lexington, Massachusetts with the Lexington Symphony Orchestra, and he still has his goatee. And that's my stories for camp.
Ruth Mcke, who was a bassoon teacher and longtime connected with Art Booth and the camp, was the one who told me about the camp. I had come back after graduating from the Royal Academy of Music in London. Everybody said, if you're going to go back to the United States for a music career, you have to get to Juilliard. So I met Ruth up in Buffalo. We were both up there. I was working in teaching and preparing really to get to Juilliard. And as we came up to the summer of 1975, which sounds like ancient history now, Ruth said, "Hey, would you like to go and be the conductor and oboe teacher at the camp?" And it sounded like something that would be a lot of fun, so I said yes. The camp itself, I mean, it was a wonderful place for the kids to go. It was well-rounded, so we had sports activities, and we had canoeing and swimming and campfires, as well as serious music teachers. The faculty Most of the faculty had music positions in universities and colleges all over the country. But the kids in my orchestra, I mean, first of all, I was very serious about the fact that I didn't want to dumb down for the kids in the orchestra. You know, they were going to play real music. I really wanted to make sure that the orchestra was not propped up by teachers playing in it, and they had done that in the past. And Art Booth said, "I trust you completely, go ahead and do it." The kids, very serious. I couldn't have asked for a better bunch. It was a great way to spend the summer. Goatee Day. I only had this, and when I was in England, partly because I was an oboe player, and that always was an irritation, I grew what was called in England an imperial, or a burb, which was the slang word for an imperial. And if you look at pictures of Shakespeare, he had an imperial. And the kids all thought that was hilarious. So one day I remember coming into rehearsal, and every single member of the orchestra had a black, and of course it wasn't white back then, had a black goatee on, and it was the funniest thing. I was trying to be cool and like not notice it, and then I completely lost it. It's a really great feeling to know that what we did back then positively affected so many of you, and that was Art Booth's vision, to create a well-rounded place for young people to thrive and develop and gain confidence and skills with music and skills in life and even sports things. I get around. So if you see me in town, usually conducting the ballet company or something, let me know. Be well, everybody.
Hello, I'm Suzanne Pasini, Christina. I was here, and I wasn't one of your longtime campers, every summer, all summer kind of people. I was only here for 3 sessions, 2 in 1976 and 1 in 1977. And I have to tell you that this experience at this wonderful place really impacted my life, gave me the confidence to go do music and meet people from all different places, and just the rest of my life. I mean, it was just really great. I loved it so much, I wanted to come back. And I needed a little financial assistance to come back. And so the camp, they loved me, everybody loved me, I was whatever, I loved them, it worked out. They said, we'll find you a job. So they gave me a job working in the kitchen. And I was not a working in the kitchen type of person. I'm not very big, and I had to carry these big trays of food out to people, you know, and luckily they didn't have me doing anything really nasty in the kitchen. I just had to like bring food out and bring food back. So I learned how to, you know, instead of holding a flute, I was holding a tray after lunch, and I pretty much only had 1 or 2 shifts. I mean, it wasn't bad at all.
Do you remember with the kitchen in your mind? Do you remember kind of what it looked like?
Yes, I remember kind of what it looked like.
Well, let's go take a look at what it looks like.
Okay.
Through the door.
So what's really interesting for me here, and you know, and somewhat emotional actually, is even though I didn't spend a lot of time in this back room because I was a wait person, you know, I can see through the door we used to go through to the dining room, and it almost even smells the same. You know, I feel the aura of it. It's really very wonderful, actually. back and I found this little bunk down in the back with the window. And now that I'm looking back as an adult, I like the way the sun came in on the bunk, and I had my own little area in the back corner. And as a first-time camper, it felt kind of good for me to have my own little spot. So the first year, my bunk was back here, over in the corner. Yep, right over here. And actually, I don't even think I had a bunk. I think it was just me. They had a single flat bed, and now I had this little sunbeam coming in right.
Is that not the sunbeam right
There
there?
it is. It's right here.
Look at that.
Beautiful view of the woods. I mean, this is typical me. You know, I love my, sitting on the patio in the sun, looking at my wooded backyard. And so this is exactly. So I was so comfortable here, even though it was a whole new strange thing for me. This is great. You got me right where. I've been playing in the Torrington Symphony in Torrington, Connecticut for over 25 years, principal flute, and I've been playing in the Connecticut Valley Symphony and several other bands, and I've just made music as big a part of my life as I can. And like I said, all the confidence I got from this place. It really, really helped me.
Hi, I'm Sue LaFrance, and I was here as a camper from 75, 76, and 77. And then I was a counselor for several years in there too, and this place was just amazing. Mr. Booth and Mr. Sandal were my high school band and choir directors, so I had them year-round, and that was fun. I started going into music, was going to be a music teacher because of them and because of this place. Then things changed and I wasn't able to do that, but I still became a teacher. Music is still in my life. I still sing in the choir at church and actually play the drums for a small drum.
Good for you.
Yeah, don't know how to play them, but I pretend at it.
Hi, my name is Joshua Gordon. I'm a professional musician. I play cello with the Lydian String Quartet, the Worcester Chamber Music Society, and I teach in the Brandeis University Music Department. I first went to Northeast Music Camp after 6th grade in junior high school. So my first summer there would have been 1976 during the nation's bicentennial. And I loved the place so much that I went back there for 2 more summers, 1977 and 1978. If I were to pick one pivotal musical memory there, it would have to be the first time I played a movement of a Haydn string quartet. It was Opus 76, number 1. And it was my first chamber music performance ever. And I think that made such a strong impact on me that it made me want to get to know the string quartet repertory. And I've been lucky to be devoting a large part of my professional life to playing just that.
Hi there, my name's Kathy A. and I was originally Kathy Atkinson back in 1975 when I attended the Northeast Music Camp. I had been a student at Fitch Senior High School at the time, and Arthur Booth was my band director. I was first chair, first trumpet, and I had never been to camp before, so I was really excited to go. It was the first time I had been in a cabin with girls my own age. I made a lot of friends. There were some people from my school there, but there were a lot of girls from other parts of Connecticut or Massachusetts that I got to meet and get to know. You can get some really strong friendships out of that. Now, since I was a trumpeter, I took trumpet lessons, and I did really get some serious training in my trumpet playing. After the first session was over, I really enjoyed it, and I had a discussion with the booths about coming for another session. And I didn't realize at the time, and I think a lot of us when we were kids, we didn't know our parents weren't very well off. My parents were poor, and they never let on that we were poor, but they couldn't afford a second session for me. So what he agreed to do with my parents is he said, I'll have her be the camp bugler, and that'll be her job, and that'll pay for her tuition for her second session. So I was the camp bugler. I had to get up every day, and at 7 o'clock a.m. sharp, I had to play reveille. And I, at the time, when I was 14, 15 years old, I really enjoyed sleeping in. I didn't like getting up early, and a lot of times my alarm would go off at 5 of 7. And I'd, like, and I would say the S word, and it's 7 o'clock, and I'd have to run out in my pajamas and play reveille for people to get up. And I got known for, they could hear that first. They could hear me shouting, it's 7 o'clock, and that was kind of like my thing. And they had camp ceremony awards, and I got the it's 7 o'clock award. So, and I've got it right here.
My name's Joanne Megan. I worked here as a counselor from 83 to 85, and then I came back in the office for 2 years. I'm standing in the office that I worked in many years ago with my friend Deb. I was in charge of meeting with the kids out there. We had no phones, no cell phones at the time, so we had a pay phone out there, so I kind of monitored the pay phone to make sure kids weren't sneaking up. Got them to their lessons on time when they needed to be. I kind of had a checklist of who was going where, and just was here as a greeter and whatever else needed to be done. And it was a phenomenal job. It was one of the best jobs I've ever had. Most of the kids came from New York City. We've had some kids from California. One year when I was a counselor, we had a girl that was from France that was here. There were a lot of, I'm told, I never met them, or I met them and I didn't know who they were, but there were some ambassadors' children here. We had a couple TV stars' children here. And the musician level was everything from very beginners to very outstanding musicians. They had a jazz program. They had the orchestra. They had a concert band. They had a choir, a treble choir and an older choir. They had small chamber groups. And like I said, they had the piano students. Everybody tried to give a recital at some point. We had recitals, I think it was the second Friday that they were here because it was 2-week sessions. So they'd have recitals, we'd have staff recitals once a week. where the staff, even from here, some of the counselors even participated in some of those, because a lot of us were music majors at the time. Well, let me start with Les Campbell was our photographer. All our pictures, we'd have them taken in a different location every time. Some were here, we had some down by the bell. We'd sometimes have them done in front of the cabins that we were living in for that summer. He took pictures for the staff that they could use for publicity and things when they weren't here. My co-counselors and I would always dress up for the pictures, as in we'd have arrows pointing at each other on our shirts, or we'd have something silly saying on our shirt or something, or dress exactly alike. This is the Booth's house where Art and Ellen Booth lived for their time at camp. The hill in the back is where we would have our closing ceremonies for camp. We would start with a big campfire on the beach, and then we would walk up with our candles, and we would light the candles. They were in the shape of a G-clef, and then they had a tree to represent the outdoors, and would all step back and would all be here, and we would sing one little candle, and everybody would stand around crying and saying goodbye and laughing and joking and reliving the summer and the end of the summer. So it was summer memories, but what a memory.
Hi, Leo LaValle, bugler.
So, around the flagpole, every morning we would have reveille, and all the campers and counselors were supposed to come out to gather in a circle around the flagpole and the bell.
A short side note in regards to the bell. It has always been rumored that the bell was the original fire alarm bell of the Enfield Fire Department. Enfield was one of the 4 towns disincorporated and dismantled to create the Quabbin Reservoir in the first half of the 20th century. Construction of the Quabbin required impoundment of the Swift River and the flooding of the towns Dana, Greenwich, Prescott, and Enfield. The construction began in 1936. Filling began in the summer of 1939 and was completed in 1946. I was able to find a record of the fire bell's arrival to Enfield in the Selectmen's Report of December 1913, along with 2 photos from 1916 and 1930 showing only the bell tower of the fire station. The town of Dana had a similar bell atop their fire station, as shown here in a 1930 photograph. I was not able to find any mention of the bell in Enfield's salvage and sales list following the town's dismantling. A visit to the Quabbin led me to Quabbin historian J.R. Green, who was kind enough to reply to my inquiry, saying, "Yes, the Enfield Fire Department had a bell in their tower, but I cannot confirm that it ended up at the camp. Valley-owned property was auctioned off in September 1938, but I am unaware if records of the purchasers were kept." So, even though it cannot be confirmed that the bell was actually from the Enfield Fire Station, we can say that the bell had its own history at the Northeast Music Camp. Unfortunately, years after the camp closed, the bell was removed from its frame and left to rust in the elements behind the inn for several years, before the property owner took it with him prior to the property's sale to the state. The bell's frame soon became hidden by overgrown brush. I cut and cleaned the bell and flagpole area for some final photos. Before they were both removed, along with all the cabins along Cabin Row.
My name's Heidi Davis, and my parents, Nancy and Jim Sandahl, along with Art and Alan Booth, started Northeast Music Camp. We had lots of fun times with skits and individual karaoke times even. We would actually have coffee houses, sometimes at Hardwick Hall or in the dining hall. true times when campers could just perform and staff members could also perform. We also had barbecues and a luau on the beach down by Hardwick Pond. And I can remember seeing pink lady slippers, which were very rare and very beautiful. They were along the path up to Art and Ellen Booth's house. I can remember thunderstorms circling around Hardwick Pond, coming back around, and just seeing beautiful rainbows also after the storms would let up. Although I do remember one night down at the head counselor's cabin where my parents and I stayed, we had a screen porch door that was opened up in, so if they, which one night the skunks pushed on the door and the door started to open a little bit. Thankfully, my mom quickly latched the door inside and kind of kept our dog in the bedroom with me away from the main room. But that was a little scary with the skunks coming in. Another thing I can remember is that the camp counselors were great babysitters, and I used to hang out in the cabins with them and the campers. I actually remember learning how to swim in Hardwick Pond, and my dad made this big buddy board which had little tags that were all numbered and had names of every camper and counselor, staff member on them, and so when you went swimming you had to have a buddy. Oh, I remember playing tetherball. We had softball games, and we had a tug of war. We had camp counselors and staff against the campers. That would be either for softball or for tug of war. In 1980, both my grandfathers passed away, and so my parents decided to take both my grandmothers and myself and other family and friends, and we rented a cottage on the lake in New Hampshire. So we left camp. We just took some family time, and it was a hard decision, but it was something that was needed at that point. Don and Donna Kitson had been there for so long. They actually were working really hard. Donna was in the office and Don was on maintenance, and they had ended up having 3 beautiful young girls grow up in camp as well. Tasha, Tanya, and Tammy. Tammy was the oldest. And so the 3 girls were running around and enjoying camp just as I did. And when I came back as a camp counselor, I had Tammy in my cabin in Copeland. And it was fun just to see them grow up there at camp as well.
Don and Donna Kitson, I believe, came in the middle 1970s. Donna was working in the office and Don was working on maintenance, I believe. And they're both educators, both into teaching, just fit beautifully as head counselors. Mm-hmm. And they certainly helped make the transition. The year Jim and I left being head counselors, they made it so easy to just slip right into that position and make that transition in the summer. And before he passed away, I should say, he and your mom asked us to come back and be directors of the camp. It was absolutely wonderful to have Don and Donna here. We just knew that whole end of camp was going to be taken care of like it always had been. They did a wonderful job with the counselors and just kept that transition again when we moved back in as if nothing had happened. It was just they were wonderful people, and I can't begin to thank them enough for all the hours and time and things that they gave for this camp.
Hello, I'm Don Kitson, former head of maintenance, head counselor, and for a time, assistant director of Northeast Music Camp. I'm a retired band director, music teacher of 44 years, but I did none of that at NMC. I was a plumber, the garbage man, big brother, uncle, or makeshift dad for 150 campers and 15 college-age counselors. Besides that, I had to contend with bats, squirrels, plugged up toilets, and of course my favorite, digging up septic tanks. It was a very unique experience for my wife and 3 girls. Where else could 150 campers aged 10 to 17, 15 counselors, and a family of 5 survive and get along and have fun? And to top it all off, the music that those campers and counselors could produce. I had nothing to do with that, but I did have the task of watching out for the well-being of the campers and staff. It's an experience that I don't believe could be duplicated in today's world. I wouldn't have traded it for anything. I will live the rest of my life remembering some of the most exciting, rewarding, and even crazy experiences. I was proud and honored to do my part, and thankful my family got to experience it all. God bless all of you that touched mine and my family's lives.
Hi, this is Donna Kitson. The first time we came to the camp was 1977. I started as the office manager, and I was pregnant with our first daughter, Tamara. We did that position for 3 years, and the second year we came back, I was pregnant again, and everybody that checked in looked at me and said, "You haven't had that baby yet?" And I said, "No, this is number 2. And then after about 3.5 years, we were asked to be the head counselors down in the lower camp. The campers started calling me Ma Kitson, even though I was in my late 20s at the time. And then all of a sudden, we came back another year. In 82, I had just had our 3rd daughter. Our girls were known as small fry at the camp, and they had all these big sisters and brothers, and the counselors treated them just like one of their own. They spoiled our girls rotten, took them to town to friendlies, and the camp meant so much to us. We got to raise our 3 daughters there in the summertime. We had kids that were my husband's students back in Washington who came and worked for us as counselors. One of the guys that came from Washington actually met his wife at the camp. She was a counselor, and they now live in Ohio, so I hope you were able to get their story, and that's Joe and Laura Jackie. We had such a friendship with Jim and Nancy Sandahl. Memories to go back on. It always will hold a very special place in our hearts. And it just meant so much to be at NMC. The friendships that we made were everything. Thanks for all the memories, guys. You made our lives so much easier. Our girls remember it. They still talk about it. You know, it's just something that you can't explain to people. But if anybody has a chance to send their kids to a camp, I hope it's something like NMC. And that is something that you can't take away from anybody.
Hi, my name is Tamara Harris, but you will remember me as Tamara Kitson. I'm the oldest daughter of Don and Donna Kitson, who were head counselors at Northeast Music Camp for many years. I grew up at camp. It was my childhood, my summer home. My parents started working there when my mom was pregnant with me in 1977, and our family went to camp until the camp closed in 1989. I got to be a small fry for a long time, and then after 3rd grade, I got to join the Copeland cabin as a camper for 3 summers. Camp was my favorite place to be. I loved learning how to swim in the lake, going on canoe trips, getting to go to Tanglewood and Old Sturbridge Village, going into Ware with my mom and dad to do school shopping, going to Friendlies. For me, Northeast Music Camp just brings back a lot of wonderful childhood memories. I'm grateful for the opportunity that I had to get to study with some amazing music teachers. They just helped influence me even more in music. I still play the piano, I still play the trumpet, I love to sing, and a lot of that has to do with my experiences at Northeast Music Camp. I think of the camp all the time, and I'm so grateful that I had the chance to go there as a child.
Hey, my name is Tanya Roman, formerly Donna Kitson. I'm the second daughter of Donna Kitson, who were the head counselors at Northeast Music Camp. Northeast Music Camp to me was like a second home. We went there every summer, probably up until I was about 10. Loved it. Probably got my love for music from going there. Learned how to read music, learned how to play music. I think part of the best experiences for me growing up there was getting to meet people from all over the place and build some friendships that still exist. Some of the other things I really enjoyed about the camp was things like the Color Corps. I can remember winning a couple kickboard races for them. I think I was on Team Choral that time. But I think this is really great that everybody's putting together memories from that time. Again, that was like the first 10 years of my life. I wouldn't change that for the world.
Hi everybody, Tasha Morsalia here, or as most of you know, Tasha Kitson. I'm the youngest of Donna Kitson and grew up at Northeast Music Camp pretty much from the time I was born until it closed. And I can honestly say that my experience is probably way different than everybody else's. I was a small fry at camp, and I got to enjoy and be a part of things that campers weren't able to do, but I also missed out on a lot of things that campers did get to do. But, you know, Northeast Music Camp really holds a special part in my life just because of going there every summer and growing up and learning so many amazing things. You know, everything from basket weaving to being able to sing in the choir to learning how to swim in the lake to hanging out with the different counselors. I know for my family, it was a wonderful experience. We would travel every summer back east, and you know, many of you know that my dad was a music teacher, but he didn't want to teach music during the summer, but he wanted to be around it, and you know, our parents wanted us to be around it, and I can say that those were some of the best summers. I got to learn so much about music and be around so many amazing, talented people. Some of my fond favorite memories were canoeing. I would do the art classes. I did get to take choir. But other than that, I was just as I call, the pain in the butt blonde little girl that would run around with my dad and my mom, and you know, get to watch all of you guys do something and you know, share your talents with everybody. I specifically remember being told that I was going to be hoisted up the flagpole in front of the bell in front of my parents' cabin. The bats, who can't forget the bats? I would get to go sleep in the other cabins, and you could hear them scratching in the wall, and I think about that now, I would totally just freak out now as an adult. But I just want to thank you for helping me grow those memories when I was younger and putting up with me. So yeah, thanks.
Hello, I'm Joe Jackie.
And I'm Laura Jackie.
I'm originally from the state of Washington.
And I'm from Ohio, which is where we're sitting right now.
People always say, where did you meet? And we say, exactly.
Because we met at Northeast Music Camp in Ware.
In the summer of 1989, the last year that the camp was open.
I went to Northeast Music Camp as a counselor in 1988, And I went out there because my voice teachers from college, Bob and Marilyn Nims, were part of the music staff there. And so it was a great opportunity for me to go out, study privately in the summer, and also be a counselor. And this is the picture of my first year at Northeast Music Camp, all the counselors. And Karen Lawrensky was my co-counselor that year. I was in Gershwin cabin.
So people always ask me also, how did you end up going to this camp all the way across the country from the state of Washington? Well, my band director, Donna Kitson, is originally from the New England area, and so he went back with his family every year to see family and to be in the New England area and be involved in music, and it was a perfectly opportunity for them to be around people that they knew. And I always saw different kids from my high school, Connell High School, going off to be counselors at this camp, different people that were older than I was. And I needed a summer job in the summer of 1989. So I asked Don, I said, hey, I said, do you need a counselor? He said, apply. So that's how I ended up there. And I was there just the 1 year, and we all had Iowa t-shirts that year because Danny Rosenthal was the kid from Iowa, and he brought us all t-shirts.
It was my second year at the camp. I was in Harris cabin. So Joe and I met because he was next door and he was a counselor and I was as well. I really didn't want to have much to do with him at first. He used to scratch on my window and drive me crazy.
No, that's not true.
That is true.
That's
and
not
then
true.
The Kitsons, I remember, got me in the head counselor's cabin and had a talk with me, and Don said, give him a chance.
Yes.
Go out on your day off with him. And so I was
Waka,
like,
waka,
fine.
waka.
So we did, and the rest is history. This is a picture of us together during the 60s dance at Northeast Music Camp.
Some of my fondest memories of the camp were just being around all the different kinds of people that I'd never really been around before. I mean, kids from New York City, kids from all over New England, people that I hadn't really, and just also the counselors, interacting with people from different parts of the country. When I grew up in a million years, I never thought I'd be sitting at a camp in Massachusetts, because I grew up in a very rural area of Eastern Washington State. So that was a lot of fun interacting with people. I have a fond memory of shellacking paddles with Ellie Richmond, and we were, I like to make up songs and make up new lyrics, so we were shellacking paddles, and I said, you shellac up my life, you make me waterproof to paddle on.
Yes, she did.
So, I mean, just being absorbed in the music, like it was just always happening. You could hear kids in the cabins, practicing and all that kind of stuff. We got some devastating news. I don't remember when it was, the fall or whatever, because we were planning to come back and be together in the summer of '90, but then we learned the camp was closing. So then Laura's father said, hey, why don't you have the boy come back and get a job and stay with us? So that's what I did in 1990. I asked Laura to marry me then. We got married in the summer of '91.
So we are a product of Northeast Music Camp. 32 years.
32 years.
To this day, when because we both go to work at the same place, when we ride to work together, and when we part ways to go to our separate classrooms, we say to each other, have a day.
Have a day.
And we're like, where did that come from? And then we realized every time we had a flag in the morning at camp, that's what Kier would say.
Have a day.
Have a day.
Howdy, campers. I'm Kier Durlam. I went to Northeast Music Camp back in the 70s and worked there in the 80s. My mother found the camp in the New York Times Classifieds because she recognized Art Booth's name in the listing. She had gone to New England Music Camp back in the 1940s and had a great time at that camp in Maine. And so she had seen this and she said, "Are you the art booth from New England Music Camp?" And sure enough, he was. Anyway, I was a camper in 76, 77, 78, 79, and then in 1980. And then I was a counselor and an assistant head counselor. Apparently, back in around 1987, I had made this fine drumstick bag out of a pair of jeans. And I don't know if you can see that. And I still have the bag, and it clearly states on their Ives. And the funny thing is, this is almost like a yearbook, because some of the campers got a hold of it, and staff, and they wrote their little comments on here. It says 1987. There was one of my nicknames, Cure Bearer. And have a day. Those are all some of the things that are written on there. Have a day was my catchphrase when I had to run flag in the morning. I always thought it was presumptuous of me to tell 150 people what kind of day to have, because we all have good days, we all have bad days. And so I just got rid of the good or the bad and said, have a day. And that was where that came from. I had this one kid that year who, nowadays we'd say, oh, he had attention deficit disorder or something like that. But he came in and he was wired to the teeth. And he was giving me flap about going to bed. And he was swearing too. And he was challenging. I can't remember his name, but I told him he had to stop swearing, and he says, "What are you going to do, make me eat soap? What are you going to do, make me eat soap?" And then he went over to the sink, and he grabbed a bar of soap, and he starts eating the damn soap. And I was like, all right, I guess that's not going to work. And then another night he came, and he was like, I've got too much energy, and I got too much energy, and I just need to run. I'm like, dude, it's dark out. And he says, I don't care, I just gotta run. I said, well, if I let you run, will you come back? He says, yeah. I said, will you come back soon? He's like, yeah, I just gotta run. I said, okay, go run. So he ran around the road that goes all the way around the field. And he comes by, and he's sweating like crazy. And I said, are you done? He says, no, I gotta go again. And so he took off again, and he went, and he came back the third time, and I said, I think you're done. And he says, I think I'm done too. And he went straight to bed. And I was like, well, I guess that works. There was a lot of stuff. The counselor world was not exactly what the camper world was. And so most of my memories are from counselor days. I don't have a ton of memories from camper days. Guess that's getting old.
I'm Donna Bortnick-Matthews, and I've had a cottage with my parents on Hardwick Pond for 69 years. I spent every summer here until I became an adult, and then I would spend as much time as I could. And in the 70s, the Northeast Music Camp came in to take the space of what was formerly an exclusive resort for children, and we were so excited to have all the musicians. And sometimes in the evening, the sound travels on the water so much, we could often hear them all the way from across the lake over here. Then they would have special performances that they would invite the community to. I think they were free, but it's been many years, I really can't remember. And I think the first time I went with my parents. And it was in a big, large auditorium. that was made for performances and probably a multi-use room. Wooden, very rustic, and you totally felt like you were at camp, but yet you had all this fine music. And I went several times after with girlfriends, and we really enjoyed it. It was so nice to have it in our backyard.
This is Mark Isaacson. I was a jazz director and did a number of things at the Northeast Music Camp. It was in the 80s. It was just a wonderful place. It was an environment that was really great, I think, for everybody, for the young musicians working their way up, that opportunity to perform and teach by example, mix with colleagues. But most importantly, it was an environment set up for the campers, the young people there. I was fortunate to work with a lot of really terrific colleagues. I borrowed from our symphony conductor here, Henry Charles Smith, who I love dearly. And one of the things that I would say to my students at the camp too is, man, that was almost great. In other words, it really sucked. One of the things that I did a lot of research and a lot of work ahead of time was into the music, trying to have enough music out there that I could match it up to the students that came to the camp. And I think I was fairly successful with that. I know I did a lot of rearranging of some parts to just make it work. You had to do whatever it took to make it work. But at the end of every 2 weeks, I think the students had a pretty good experience in playing, and I sure did. And I found that what I put in to the group, the students gave back to me equally, if not more. And Art and Ellen and Nancy and Jim Kitsons were always real good about finding young people that I think would fit in, and I think I fit in pretty well. I was there. I was through the last year. I'd probably still be there if it was running. But anyway, my best to all of you, and any fond memories.
Good morning, Northeast Music Camp friends. My name is Nat Bay, and I was a trumpet player and attended Northeast Music Camp from 1980 to 1982. I was originally from Albany, New York, and now I reside down here in Cedar Point, North Carolina, where the military brought me down here a long time ago. I did 20 years in the military, and then I've done another 13 years as a federal employee right near Camp Lejeune. So living on the water, very similar to Northeast Music Camp. I was in Ellington cabin for a couple of years, and then I believe I was in Ives. And just so many fond memories of that camp. You know, it's that perfect alchemy of youth, you know, when you're a teenager and just getting better and better at your instrument. It's a real heady time. There was always romance in the air. There was relationships, and there was just fun times in the cabin, playing silly games like Killer Card and listening to comedy albums like Cheech and Chong over and over again. And I was also the trumpeter for taps and for reveille, so that was a big responsibility for me. But the other thing that I always remember was being surrounded by so much talent. I had won a few state music competitions, you know, achieved first place with my instrument, but I was really humbled when I got to Northeast Music Camp because the level of talent was just through the roof. Some of the most amazing musicians I've ever come across, and the conductors, such enthusiasm. They really just stoked a love for music. And then I also sang in choir as well, and but lots of great times. So it was really just a wonderful time there, and I'll never forget it.
Hi, my name is Kristen Seafried Cathcart. Some of my fondest memories, I'm sure so many people have similar ones, but the candlelight ceremony at the end of every section of camp was absolutely one of the most moving experiences I'd ever had. And singing our prayers before meals. Again, shell shock, they kind of throw you in when you first arrive and say, here, we're going to sing before we eat, and here's the song, you're going to learn it now. And so there were several that we did on a rotating basis, and one was Johnny Appleseed. I couldn't sing it on a dare today, but Yade Amos Hodie I found in our church hymnal a few years ago, and was absolutely astounded that it was the exact same round that we had done at camp. And of course, now I've taught it to my choir, I've taught it to my congregation. Both know my camp story about it and how I learned it and how we sang it at mealtime. They know it so well, they know it and they can tell the story for me, which is great. That means I tell the story frequently enough. And I absolutely realized when I was doing my undergrad and doing my grad school that we were so blessed and lucky to have the professional grade teachers that Northeast Music Camp and Arthur Booth had managed to hire. I was astounded by it, but at one point I was taking flute lessons with a flautist from the New York Philharmonic. She wasn't with the Philharmonic at the time, but it was very shortly thereafter. And then I took lessons with her again at Manhattan School of Music during my grad school years. So it was astounding to me. And then also my piano teacher was my piano teacher in college. So my undergrad. So surprisingly, I didn't know anything like that when I was going to camp. Why would I even think that? So blessed to be on those grounds and that beautiful, I just have beautiful memories of the grounds, the cabins. I don't camp well, I'm not a tent sleeper, but those cabins were actually pretty comfortable. I was exposed to so many beautiful, brilliant people, campers, counselors, teachers, staff. I was so lucky. And so many of us that went there, all of us, really, we were so blessed and so lucky. I had great guidance from our counselors and our teachers that I learned so much. Many of those experiences have formulated the person I am now.
Hi everyone, this is Scott Kochman coming to you from New York City. I was a trumpet player, actually I still am a trumpet player. And for me, Northeast Music Camp was really life-changing, as I'm sure it was for many of you too. Growing up in an environment which was mostly focused on sports, music wasn't really that appreciated. And all of a sudden, here I am, I'm this 13, 14, 15-year-old kid. I come to music camp. I'm pretty good, if I dare say so myself, at the trumpet. And you folks, you kind, wonderful folks, were just lovely and nice to me and respectful and appreciative of my ability to play trumpet. And that did wonders for me in terms of self-esteem and feeling good about myself, because I wasn't feeling that great about myself, being in this sports environment, which I was not really good at. And this really made a huge difference in my life, and I will always be grateful for Northeast Music Camp for that. Found some letters that I actually wrote to my parents, and I have one of them here from July 1981, and I'll just read you a little bit because I thought it was really cute. Dear Mother and Father, thanks for the health mix. It's really excellent. All right, this part's boring. I'll skip it. Seems interesting. About a book. Oh, I'm turning preppy. Do you guys remember mid-'80s, early '80s, the Preppy Handbook? Well, I guess I got into that. Nothing poly or dacron, all natural fibers, and I need wool underwear. I don't think I've ever had wool underwear, but Oxford shirts, button-down polo, khakis, scrap-all socks, alligator, everything. Remember Jenny G, the blonde girl you took a picture of us? Well, she's here too, and she's sitting right next to me now as we're sunbathing. Here's her signature. That's Jenny Gundy. She also played the trumpet. Isn't that interesting? I've been doing some blah, blah, blah. Anyway, love you, Scott. Well, it was a great experience. I'd have to say, looking back in life, one of the greatest experiences, and I was really so blessed that my parents had the means and the inclination to be able to send me to Northeast Music Camp for 3 glorious summers. Not the whole summer, I think I only went for 1 month at a time, but that was enough to make an impression to last a lifetime. So thanks to all of you guys for the wonderful memories, and thanks to Northeast Music Camp for everything that you guys did.
Hi, my name is Brett Miller, and I am happy to have been a part of Northeast Music Camp history. I remember when my parents told me I was going to music camp, and of course everybody made fun of me. But what a drastic impact that camp made on my life. I went for, I think just for 2 weeks the first year because I was nervous about going. It was my first overnight camp. And then the last 3 summers that I went back, I went for the entire 8-week time because it was just amazing. I worked in the dining facility to help supplement my tuition, which was awesome. We had a great crew that worked up in the dining hall, and we used to sing all those wonderful songs. The Lord is good to me, and so I thank the Lord for giving me the things I need, the sun and the rain and the apple seed. I remember that like it was yesterday, just like everybody remembers the whole, Peace I Ask of Thee, O River, that we used to sing every night after a performance or some evening activity. But, I fell in love with Northeast Music Camp and Ma Kitson and all the counselors that I had, and I still have friends that I still talk to this day. I'm 50 now. And it's been many years, but I still have good friends that I went to Northeast Music Camp with. And, they're all still somehow linked to music in their life. Me personally, I continued to play multiple instruments after I graduated high school and into college, but did not end up, making a career out of music. But consequently, I own a giant wellness center for people with neurological diseases, and we have a choir, and we have a drum team, and we do concerts in the spring and in the winter. We do Christmas concerts, and I direct all those and choreograph all those, and play some instruments as well for those concerts. So music has followed me through Northeast Music Camp. Some of my most famous memories was that I was able to get my water safety and lifeguard certification while I was at Northeast Music Camp. I used to love the cabin competitions that we used to have, as well as all the different sports and the trips to Tanglewood and all the things that we did outside of studying music as an orchestra and a choir. And some of the things I did not like about music camp was the practice cabins were like sweat boxes, and I'm sure everybody that went there can remember, you get into this thing, there were like hornets everywhere, and you'd be sitting there practicing in there, and the sweat would be dripping all over your instrument and on your music. One of my not so favorite moments, but I will remember Northeast Music Camp for the rest of my life. Again, the impact it's made on my life for my love of music and instruments, and I still go to the orchestras here. I live in Boston, so I go to the symphony, and we have fabulous music venues here. And also just the friends, the counselors, and all the just phenomenal people that I met. It is very sad to hear that they are demoing all of the buildings. And there is there will be obviously some really amazing energy and spirit that will live on that property. No matter what they do with it, it will always be a special place for a lot of people. That will be a very special place for a very long time. So I'm just glad that I had an opportunity to be a part of that. So thank you.
Art died in 1986. So in 1987, when Jim and I came back as directors of the camp, we had one of our concerts that summer as a celebration of life service for art, and had all kinds of wonderful tributes to this wonderful man who kept the camp going all the years prior to it. Ellen was a big help to us, and we to her, in getting that program going, and the kids were part of it. Everyone on the staff was part of it, so it was just a very meaningful, special concert with arts, a tribute to Art Booth. The following year, our registrar, Ma Willard, passed away, so we did the same thing for her in '88. That would have been one of the concerts was a tribute to Ma Willard. So we did the same type of thing that we did for art, we did for Ma Willard. So she will always be remembered. I'm sorry, my husband passed away 10 years ago, unfortunately. We were really sad to see that happen, and I know at the end we were just glad that the good Lord took him, because he's in a much better place than where he was at the time of his death. So I had said to Nancy last time we were here that I could feel Jim as we walked through the campgrounds. I actually could feel Art and Ellen were here too. It's amazing. But that's exactly...
Yeah, I can just see him walking through the trees over there. It's funny.
The most wonderful years of my life were spent right here at camp. So 18 years altogether camp ran. So I think that gave the Booths a real pat on the back and a real run. I think it was just wonderful. That first year, dragging that dock out, oh, it was heavy. And getting a raft out there beyond the dock. Unbelievable.
How did we do it? Yeah.
Some of the things we did, we must have been crazy.
Yeah, I think so. Now you look back on it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we're delighted to be in the midst of this project and making sure that the property can stay open to the public, but also back open to the wildlife and everything.
It's amazing.
Absolutely.
See, this was our memories.
And there's a whole bunch of us that want to come back and have a reunion thing here when it's back to.
I know Fish and Game is they're open to that. They just they want to know and have they've got a little permit process.
Oh, yeah,
They're certainly happy to do that.
Cool.
So the transfer of the property will happen before June 30th.
Oh, awesome.
Nice. So, yep.
Cynthia, what went into the project here? I know you did a lot of work. I think you should mention what that entailed.
Well, I mean, kind of the bulk of the work up until this time has been, of course, negotiating with the landowner and getting to a space when they were ready to sell the property and figuring out how to actually fund it. We initially started trying to conserve this property over 10 years ago and had made an offer at that point. And at that time, the camp buildings they didn't meet code, but they were better shape. Mm-hmm. And the state was actually interested in having their conservation camp happen here. But we were never able to come to agreement on price. And so a decade went by and life changes and things happen, and we were able to do that. And the Commonwealth of Department of Fish and Game have been doing a lot of management on their Muddy Brook Wildlife Management Area, so over 600 acres further to the north, and it, with other conservation lands, connects with the Quabbin Reservoir. And so they've been really restoring the Barrens habitat. So that's the sand plain, right? We're standing on sand, a big pile of sand underneath us, and like the little blue stem grass area that's up above, all of that's really important habitat. So we're in a interior kind of hot spot, and so it's very exciting to be able to add this acreage onto that. It's almost 100 acres, as you guys know.
I just wanted to say, my parents would be so happy that you guys are doing this. My mom, my father died before the camp closed, and eventually it just became too much for everybody, and we had to sell it. And she had such a hard time finding people who would care for it and love it. And obviously, it's had a rough time. So I know she was so happy.
Good.
Absolutely.
Good.
Oh yes.
Good.
Standing here and looking around, you can hear the music and the laugh and all the people. And I hope that everybody that came here, this touched your life in a positive way. And you touched someone else's life in the same way. Because what they did here is they gave us an amazing experience that I don't think anybody can get today.
If we blossomed as musicians at NMC, thanks to the teachers and conductors and performers we heard, we grew as human beings because of the friendships. As one friend put it in a poem, at NMC, we grew from the ground up.
I consider myself extremely lucky to have had both music camps in my life, but Northeast Music Camp evokes the strongest emotions.
The sense of community and the sense of being, and we knew it was a safe place. I think for me that was a good thing, knowing it was a safe place to come to. And that it's going to be kept here is cool.
I'm sad being back here. Seeing what's happened to the place. Mr. and Mrs. Booth took such pride in all these buildings and the grounds, and as did the Sandals, as did the Kitsons. But I'm very happy that it's not going to turn into a solar field or condominiums or a housing project. And we'll all be able to come back here. And when I was walking around down below, I could still hear the laughter and I could still hear the singing and the music. And it's a wonderful thing. I'm going to come back someday and just sit there in the sun and relive everything.
So I'm looking up at the pine trees and the buildings, and it's like they're almost The buildings are still almost alive, like the pine trees. You know, they're there, they're deteriorating. It's sad to see them, but the spirit's here. And this whole area has such spirit in it, and it always did. And it always will, thanks to being preserved.
Many, many wonderful years. Probably the best years of my life were spent here. Great place to raise our daughter. Great place to make friends that we have kept in touch with all these years and still do. I hope they will come back and see this place once it is just going to be gorgeous and not wrecked and no buildings to have troubles with. So it's just wonderful. Thank you all very, very much.
There are certain experiences in life that stay with you, that really create you as an individual and help you understand how important certain things are. And this was one of them. It's now not a camp anymore, but it is going to be something very, very beautiful and meaningful to other people, and we're very grateful for that.
When we all come up, at the end of everything we had, we would sing the song Peace. So there was a camp song that we sang. No, I'm not singing it, guys.
Peace I ask of thee, O river. Peace, peace, peace. When we learn to live serenely,
cares will cease. From the hills I gather courage.
Visions of the days to be. Strength to lead and faith to follow. All are given unto me.
Peace I ask of thee, O river. Peace, peace, peace.
peace I ask of thee, O river. Peace, peace, peace. When I learn to live serenely, cares will cease. From the hills I gather courage, visions of the days to be. Strength to lead and faith to follow. All is given unto me. Peace I ask of thee,